Turn around, go back, next week. You know, and they still pump this crap out. You think, I mean, I can laugh at Canada, but the British ambassador to the UN will be repeating the same farce in the spring of 2012. What is going on? Now we really think about it. On your dollar and then on our pound. Not Dick, our sterling pound. And anyway, 2 decades passed, and a very smart German businessman and a Spanish fascist were among the first to grasp that elite sport was an undervalued asset and it should be sweated for profit. Sport had to be privatised. It was going to cost millions in bribes. Now this entrepreneur was Horst Dassler of the Adidas family, the sports kit manufacturers. His first target was FIFA and the World Cup, a very with great commercial potential, which has been realised. He paid the bribes, Mr. Dassler did, Herr Dassler, that placed the Brazilian João Havelange, and let's just remember him, we're going to come back to Havelange later on, put him in power at FIFA in 1974. Dassler recruited a marketing team in Monte Carlo and began selling football to the brands. The coup was to engage Coca-Cola. In the marketing business, Coke is known as the Halo Company. If you can sign them up, others will follow. Now, Dassler's company was publicly known as International Sport and Leisure, ISL. Its secret business was massive bribery in return for contracts. Everything I do is say is documented, by the way. We'll come on to some of that in a bit. Dassler's team invented new competitions of youth football, expanded into athletics, and created new championships that were sold to sponsors and television. The officials got to travel in the front of the plane and stay in better hotels than the athletes. The brands were quick to clothe themselves with the aura of being morally superior to other products in the marketplace. I mean, they've got a sacred product. Who can compete with that? The final challenge, of course, was to take control of the IOC. Dassler needed to impose his own president. In 1980, elections were due. We were talking earlier, Steph, about James Worrell from Canada fantasising to himself he got a real chance of being elected. And who knows, actually what I know about him, he wouldn't have been a very good president, but he thought naively that he should put himself up for this. Now, at the beginning of that year, 1980, which is quite crucial in IOC history, Dassler revealed his seducer's techniques in an article for the IOC's Olympic Review magazine, one of the least read review magazines in the world, and if you're in the commercial marketplace, it would last one issue. Look at it and see, and look at it historically. I read every one from 1948 to 1991 when I wrote the first book. And you may spot the brain damage. Only you can tell. Now, in return for more money than they could ever dream of, the IOC should let commerce through their sacred door. Dassler was assisted by the French businessman André Gelfi, who ended up in jail for his money laundering rackets. Here's Gelfi on the left, with IOC president then Juan Antonio Samaranch, and what I will call, for legal reasons, controversial was businessman Gafur Rakimov. I do have a copy of his FBI file, and what he exports from Afghanistan doesn't do our children any good at all. He denies it, by the way. Have we got any lawyers in the house? He denies it. Mr. Rakimov says he's a businessman, being photographed with 2 other businessmen. And here is Dassler's protege, if I can find out how to work this. Spanish fascist official Samaranch. Here he is, second from left, in uniform at a fascist ceremony in Barcelona in 1954 with his fellow thugs. And note the Olympic-style burning torches. Burning torches are not imagery just for the IOC. The guys in the iron heel boots realise that there's a lot of iconic value in it. This particular ceremony was to remind the citizens of Barcelona that these men had won the Civil War and were still executing Democrats, as they did right up into the 1970s. Now, let's not forget that Samaranch was a disciple of the murderous, vile dictator Franco. Hitler thought he was a bit of a joke, actually, and if he weren't on his death list, he was. Here he is sucking up to Hitler, trying to show that he could be just as tough a Nazi as the real thing. But he wasn't the real thing, but he was if you lived in Spain. Now, Sam Rank manipulated to become a Franco favourite. There he is shaking, then in the later years, the dictator's hand. Now, do you see the fellow exiting to the left? Anybody figure out who that is? That hairstyle, the shape of the skull? Well, he's now King Juan Carlos, and nobody ever asks him. The deal was that Franco would allow him to become king on his death, but he had to wear the fascist uniform, the movimento uniform, and basically be supportive of the regime. And nobody ever asks King Juan Carlos. He's a king. He's a king. He was on the IOC for a while until he became king, as they do. Nobody ever asks him, how many times did you do this thing? It's such bad taste, isn't it? Journalists are so lacking in good taste, thank goodness. Now, we go on with the, there is Sam Rank, part of his swearing-in process when he became Franco's sports minister. There's Franco, I think, far left. Next to him is Corrado Blanco, who probably is responsible for executing more Spaniards than anybody else in the history of the world. And Sam Rank is making his way up the tree there. And he never missed a chance to do himself good. He's sucking up there. If I can get this into work, my fault. There he is with Franco's daughter. Can you see the "what would you like me to be" look on his face? As people like that do with powerful people on their way to becoming powerful people. And, as late as 1974, Sam Rank was still appearing. 1974? Still appearing in public. It was the last year of Franco's reign. His bottom right down there, notice the blue shirt. They were the blue shirts in Spain, the movimento. That was part of their regalia. So there he is at bottom right. And here's the picture that took me years and years to find because there was a lot of shredding after Franco died in 1975. But there's Sam Rank. He's fourth from the right. He knows that change has got to come. The dictatorship must end soon. You know, Franco was probably dead months before they announced it. Remember, those older people here? They kept him on the life support while various factions of the right were trying to fight who would take control after they had to announce he was dead. So you see his arm is about as low as it can be, whereas you've got these rather sad types. And there's really good news in that picture, because if you look at some of the older clowns there, it shows that fascists don't age well. Bring on the... Don't know, there's a camera there. Bring on the communists! Well, actually, the communists had lost the war and were all in cell structures by then. So, 29 years after the end of World War II, they're still doing it. The right arm is in the air, and the IOC is... He was a vice president of the IOC at that time, a man who thought the wrong side won World War II. Not a topic to be discussed because he's an honorary president for life. And you know, there's one word you must never use, never use in IOC circles, whether as a civilian or as a reporter. Don't use the F word. Now, not that word which we're not supposed to say in front of the children. Don't use the word fascist, because everybody knows we don't want to talk about it. It's not nice. It's not nice. He only did it for 37 years. He was installed by Dassler's manipulations as IOC president in 1980. And at the Moscow Games that followed, which kicked off the next day, suppressed all the positive drug tests. Remember Montreal? I think, was it 11, was it 13? There were a significant number of positive tests, and everybody knew at the time that the testing was inadequate. When you had the East German women swimmers saying, "You're saying there's something wrong with me, pal." Okay, they were victims, we shouldn't laugh at them too much. But we knew then that doping was absolutely rife through elite sport. And not just in East Germany. The Americans as ever led the charge in saying, we can dope, we can do it as well, you know, not just these commies. So you had a global doping conspiracy. Come Moscow, Comrade Brezhnev wanted to clean games, he was paying for it. And because Sam Rank and Dassler needed a clean product to sell to the big brands, so there were no positive tests. If you look at the graph of tests through the